We are running away from bears and out of licorice. In this episode of The Jane and the Vein, we talk about all of the things Tesla is doing besides cars. We discuss superintelligence and AI and how we have no clue what is going on. Before we talk about make your own robot with 3D printing and absolutely no chance of getting a girlfriend, with tightly knitted underwear and salacious haberdashery.
And we're back. We have, again, the very, very handsome Joel Jackson on the other end of the line here. Welcome to The Jane and the Vein, the show where toothbrushes are made by dentists. How is your week been, Joel? It's we haven't actually been quite a week since the last show, but since the last.
Well, let's just pretend that it has been that long.
Yeah, let's pretend. How was your
just-
Sunday?
It feels like a week.
Yeah. Well, that's
Well,
I have
you
that effect
know,
on people.
Yeah, it just feels like it's been ages. Well, most people that spend any time around me know that I run. Right now, it's more waddle than run. I'm not in particularly good shape, and I did at one time, probably 4 years ago or so. I used I used a lot of those, or tried a lot of different running apps and used them for training and such, and did that, off and on. And I still use one track runner still on occasion to track runs and keep track of mileage. But one thing I noticed is that I was out running with a friend, and he kind of said, "Yeah, I was using a Fitbit for a while." He said, but I got so in sort of entranced with it. He said I just kind of sort of lost. It made it no fun, and because I was always worried about my steps, and he said so I stopped using it. And I guess it's kind of interesting to me that in my little corner of the world, or at least the people I'm familiar with, running community and all, fewer and fewer people are sort of constantly wearing these things. And I mean, that's sort of an observation I've had in this past week, and with the exception of those really sort of arduent trainers who are using Garmin devices and things like that, I just see this general decline overall in the use of these training devices. I don't know if that's what's happening in your neck of the woods, but I'd be curious, listeners, if they're having the same thing. You and I both went through our band. You had a band one, didn't you?
I had a band one, sorry, and then I had 3 band twos, and the third one I didn't even unpack. I just sold it straight off on eBay.
You and everybody else.
That's right.
So at one time I thought I was going to turn my band two into the third band two into a tracker for my cat, and I still have a notion of that, but Sam's been playing with it, so I'll let it be. So sorry I railed on a bit about what's been happening this week, but for some reason that's been stuck in my head, that conversation I had, because I wasn't really quizzing him about technology or anything. He just kind of shared it organically. So
no, I think
what's
it's actually
going on in
interesting
Hades.
because I just want to touch on that point, because there are trackers galore, right? There are so many different kinds of fitness trackers, and they're not kind of gone into smartwatches now. It's become sort of the one and the same thing. And my impression is that people that would use a smartwatch because they like the notifications or whatever, they still want to use a smartwatch. But people that bought the trackers because it was going to make them lose weight or walk more or whatever it was, and they turned out that it didn't actually work because you got to do the work as well, they just gave them up, and they're now back to status quo. And that's probably where the decline is that I see. I wore the band, even though it was a fitness tracker. It was much more, I used it as a smartwatch, and I especially tracked my sleep, which I thought was interesting. And then I'm not wearing any at the moment, I was thinking of getting a Samsung watch, the Gear VR, whatever it's called, Gear V3. I can't remember what the name of it is,
Yeah.
because that's probably the nicest watch I've seen in a long time, as a smartwatch, that is fully featured. Like, you can actually put a SIM card in it. So
Wow.
that yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's not cheap either,
Well,
but
you know, so my experience wearing watches is I've broken every watch I've ever owned. And so when they started coming out with these wearables, I almost like threw my hands up in the air and said, "Hey, I'll test them. I'll test them because where I run,
yeah,
it's god awful weather. It's rainy. It's nasty. This is about as not necessarily cold, but as far as wet, is about as bad as it gets. And my experience has been none of them will make it. The people that I know that have Apple
yeah.
Watches here, a couple of them, they don't wear them running because they don't want to destroy it.
That's the thing. With the
At least
band,
not outside.
I wore the band absolutely everywhere. I never really took it off. And the first one, kind of the wires inside the actual strap just kind of broke and it stopped working. The
Mm,
second one came
yeah.
apart, and that's with no running whatsoever. That was just going around the farm here and wherever else I was going, just like wearing a watch. So they certainly have some longevity issues, I would say.
Well, I have to tell you, so this is. I always wanted to do a whole show on running, but I'm not going to bore you with running for the whole show. But people that listen, if if you want if you want to be more productive, if you want to sleep better, if you want to be feel happier, go for a run. Do it on a regular basis. Go for a jog. Doesn't matter how fast you go. Get out and go. That's my little tag for that. And if you lived in Ketchikan, I'd go run with you. If I ever run into you in the future, somewhere in the
Does
world,
someone else
I will
lives in
ask you to go
Ketchikan?
for a run. Yes, there's a few of us. And actually, well, it's interesting, in runner culture. So runners, generally speaking, run by themselves. Yeah, yeah, very few people that I know that run routinely look for someone to go run with, except every once in a while. And this past week, that's what it was. I think maybe once or twice every 2 months, I might go out and run with somebody else. So I don't know. That's my plug for running. I won't beat you up about it, Lars. I won't ask you if you went running this week because I don't want to put you on the spot.
I don't run. uh,
Yeah, that's all right. And I don't own Jeeps.
no, well, there you go. Well, it's been unusually cold the last few days, so I guess you could have gone for a run,
Mhm.
but it's back to 35, whatever it is today, which is
Yeah,
what,
I'd
100
I'd
degrees
black out.
Fahrenheit. So,
If Yeah, no, I'd die. I mean, I'd have a heart attack. I'd be in a shock in about 10 minutes trying to run in that. So,
well, I just don't think it's healthy, right?
well, so what have you recovered from your trip? Are you back at it now? Are you coding
Yeah, I
and
have. I'm back. I'm building software again, and I had this odd. My arm kind of bore the brunt of it, I think, because it just got really sore. But now it's all right. But it must have been from the driving or something. I'm not sure. So
you got a
well,
sore arm from driving?
I know it was and it was kind of like the shoulder. But yeah, anyway, it was odd. But then again, we did do 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers in 2 days. So there was a fair bit of driving involved.
You're getting old.
I thought it was. I mean,
Well, hey, I was kind of one of the things that I kind of you're a big Elon Musk. I don't, am I saying that right?
yeah, that's right.
Uh, a fan,
I
Tesla
don't know if I'm a
fan,
fan,
and
but
I know that
I appreciate all the things that he wants to
Oh
do
no, no,
and
you're
puts
a
in.
fan.
Oh, okay.
Lars, when you talk about Musk, you light up. I mean, your
Is
eyes
that
get all glazed
is that
over,
because I've
and your
got that
voice gets
mural
all
on the
high.
wall?
That's right. You got, don't you have the Elon Musk swimsuit calendar, on your wall there?
Oh wow, this went downhill quickly.
Anyways, so I kind of figured, you know what, since I'm always sort of taking shots at him, I would actually kind of look through a little bit about, what they're doing, and you know, it's interesting that people talk about the cars and that, and really, if you look at what's happening now, so their Gigafactory, which is, I think, a horribly stupid name, but people remember it,
But you know why it's called a
is,
gigafactory?
is because people will remember it.
No, no,
Don't give
no,
me some
no.
other BS, because that's exactly why they use that term.
No, it's because it
Sorry, don't
outputs a
try to
gigawatt of power
no, they
in
call it that
batteries.
so people remember it, and it's cool.
Okay, all
That
right,
is,
sorry.
and I would like to go. Anyways, I'd fight you to the death over that. Anyways, their battery cell production started in their first factory, um, and they basically are not burning cash as fast. And what that means is that I think what I said before, and what others have said, the cars are what is the shiny, the shiny object, but that the other things, solar city, battery cell, what do they call the power wall? Those will be the things that actually turn it into a profitable company. Now, um, kind of like Bing was a big hole for Microsoft for years and years. I they I'm not sure how much money they would have to make for how long, but it's literally billions of dollars for years to recover the sunk costs. But if you think about it as a 20 or a 30-year investment, then it's definitely an interesting company. Not so interesting that I would buy stock in it at this price, but um, um, I'm not as so I'm not so keen to just throw them under the bus like I had in the past, because of all the subsidies in the United States they'd received and things like that. So, anyways, I just thought I would give kudos to Tesla, after looking through their most their annual report for
Mm.
2016, and
Well, let's just
did
talk about the gigafactory if you don't mind, because now that you've brought
sure,
it up, so
yeah,
there was I guess it was a news report that came out today at the same time as well, and Tesla's already got Gigafactory 2 site finalized, so
hmm
that's in Buffalo, and Gigafactory 3, 4, and 5. They're looking for location, or they're finalizing locations for those as well. And it's just a single gigafactory, which is what these factories are called, and they're enormous. If you haven't looked at pictures of the gigafactory, it means that they're producing. I said a gigawatt. It's actually 35 gigawatt hours of capacity in batteries that they're producing per year,
Oh,
which
well, then
is
they should be called a 35 gigawatt factory, right?
it should be the Latin for
Just
35 gigafactory. Anyway,
that's right.
so and
XX.
it's more lithium-ion batteries annually than were produced anywhere in the world in 2013. That's what they're going to do by 2018. So we're not talking small increments here. It is an enormous increase in battery production, and they're doing this obviously because they couldn't get the batteries cheap enough so that their car for everyone, which is the Model 3, which is it on sale or it's going on sale soon? They're trying to get the price down.
Um, Second half of
And
2017, I think.
okay, so not
Yeah,
quite yet, but I think you can pre-order them and whatnot. And to
yeah.
get the price down on these things is the batteries is a major component of it. It's the engine essentially. It's got two electric motors, but other than that, and so they're building gigafactories, and they're obviously going to produce batteries for other things than just cars. They're not silly, which is why they keep building gigafactories because batteries in Tesla's world is what's going to drive the world, not oil. And then you're supposed to charge these obviously with solar power, which is why he has Solar City. And then we're going to colonize Mars, but that's a different conversation as well. So the
Sure. I
gigafactories
mean, I
are,
was looking at
yeah,
they're they're like the size of what, maybe 8 to 10 football fields, a U.S. football field. So, if you're thinking about an
something like
Australian
that.
rules football pitch, 7 to 10 of those. I mean, they're huge.
Yeah, they are very, very,
Like,
very large. That's why they take about 4 years to build as well. Like they're huge. So
hmm.
It's
That's a lot of lithium.
it is a lot. um, yeah, it is a lot. So that's I don't think if
So
you
I
haven't
mean,
looked at the
what?
gigafactories, please go and check them out on Tesla's website. They're very interesting to read about.
So but I mean, because to me, like you would be like the prime customer for, say, one of these Powerwall systems,
Uh huh.
right? Some semi-rural, you know, maybe have the capacity for solar. Um, so you're someone who could potentially have solar. You could sell, and well, in the states, you can sell excess power back into most municipal
Yep.
systems.
Same here.
Um, and then if you had that power wall in your building, it would, like keep your pool warm for you,
Well, so
or
uh,
actually you could use it to jumpstart your Jeep and all sorts of things like that.
exactly. Now I'll tell you what we've considered. So we do have solar power now, but we are also on the grid, and what I would assume is the same everywhere in the Western world. Power prices are just going up and up, and it's now got to a point here where people are using less power, which again means the power prices will go up because they still have the same cost to cover and the same money to make. So the less you use, the more expensive it'll be. And they now closed one of the large power plants just outside Melbourne in Australia, one of the large coal-fired ones. And people went, "Woo, it's good, yay!" But the problem is that now the other power plants have to now pick up the slack, right? So what we've considered for our property is that we want to have probably 40 or 50 panels here on the roof. So currently we have 16, which is not a lot, and all of that power will go to consumption initially, and then it'll go into a battery after that until the battery is charged, which will be probably during the day. It should be able to be charged in one day. And for those that don't understand solar panels, it's okay that it's overcast. They'll still get solar on them. That still produce electricity. So it's not only when it's sunny. So hooray, Britain! Woo! And we we are going to have probably two banks of batteries when we've eventually installed this. And the idea is that, as you said, when the sun goes down and you don't produce power anymore, you use the battery power from the batteries. And then if you run out of that, at that point is when you go back to the grid. So the grid becomes a backup instead of the solar being a backup as it is currently. So that's the kind of system we're going for. And you said semi-rural. You can do this anywhere. You can be in the city as well. It's fine. You can
Sure.
be in a normal house.
But so one of the things that occurred to me is if you're anywhere around the equator, around the world, the closer your particular location is to the equator, the more likely it is that these things are going to be useful to you.
Sure.
Um, what's interesting, I mean, it's interesting to me the tactic they're using is very similar to what my brother uses for pellet mills, which is, first you have to create the demand, so you have to get the utility companies to put in these inverter and power pack 2, these substations. And I was looking through some of the locations, and they're American Samoa, Kauai, Southern California, where they've done um, some of these installs with solar panels and these power pack 2, I guess is what they call it, but basically these battery walls. So it's interesting to see if that's where they'll focus all of their efforts, around the equator. And then also, I'm curious to see how their new roof goes, because that seems like, in general, it'd be the one that really they could make the most hay with. If they could really convince um, acceptance on a large scale with that, that would be huge.
So
Um,
just to
to
explain what the solar roof
pardon the
is.
Well, they've designed a roof tile system that is in effect solar panels. I think the technology kind of is always sort of the idea has always sort of been there. Um, they, I mean, I've seen a lot of. I'm not an expert in this area, but I've seen a lot of back and forth about how well you're going to need an electrician to install your roof. That kind of talk. And then how are you going to be able to insure it? On the other hand, you know I mean, pretty much what he said and what the company said they would do, they've done. So if he's saying that they've tested these tiles and they work as designed, I'm not sort of inclined to disbelieve him. I do think that production will not be the thing that stops him from putting these in place. It will be the installation, and then also convincing people that this is a cost-effective way, and then having the infrastructure in place, right? Having the power wall, being able to sell back into the system. Those would be the barriers for me.
Yeah, and I would hope that this solar roof does take off, and there are other people or other companies that would produce similar products, because competition is always good for innovation, right? So hopefully,
Sure.
most new houses, especially in a country like Australia or California, say country, but the state of California, we would certainly want to see solar roofs be implemented, because why not?
Well, I don't know how closely people that listen or may listen to us follow Tesla, and obviously I'm not an expert on them, but I think I'm I guess I would just say I've moved to the side of being a more of a believer than I
Did you say
was
believer?
a believe. Oh yeah, God help us all. So maybe we can put a link to that annual report, which is it's
Yeah, for
pretty
sure.
useful, and
Yep.
it's an official document on the show notes.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. That's fine. And so moving on a bit, it's still sort of Elon Musky territory. You sent me I guess it's a
Musky,
transcript. Hey,
a musky. Isn't that like a
musky.
fish or something?
It's a smell, isn't
I
it?
think it's a fish.
Um,
It's a smell too, yeah.
but you sent
Speaking of
me.
which, have you ever listened to Muskrat Love? That's a great song.
No,
You should
no, I
look it up
haven't.
sometime. Look up
No.
Muskrat Love.
Yeah, right.
Sorry,
No, it's
I digress.
you sent me. I guess it's not a transcript, but like it's a presentation that's written down, and it has a bunch of slides and whatnot. It's called Super Intelligence. And to be honest, I haven't read the whole thing. It's a fairly long piece of work, but it does raise some really interesting arguments, I guess, about something like artificial intelligence. And it kind of starts out here saying, we started out with just physicists being worried that we are going to blow up the ozone or the atmosphere, which I thought was a very interesting argument. That would have been quite the spectacle.
Oh yeah, with the nuclear bomb.
Mm.
So that's I mean that was sort of their idea. So right, if when they were developing nuclear weapons, one of the concerns is that if you start this reaction in the atmosphere, because there is so much nitrogen in our atmosphere, that you could literally burn up our atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they're using that as an example of, so what we don't know about artificial intelligence is as important about as what we do know. And it took somebody thinking beyond just creating the explosion, right? So to sort of think about, okay, well, what are the other things that could happen? And I think that's sort of in essence what this whole series of topics and discussion or ideas is about. Um,
Yeah, I guess
anyway,
it has some sort of relation to. So if you talk about you know if you say reactions like that, so if you smash two nitrogen atoms together, they release an enormous amount of energy, right? And that was the concern, was that if you blew up this nuclear bomb, would it then ignite all sorts of other stuff? And this idea of consequences that we are not sure of, because this is what I like about this. There's I'll put a link to it, but this article it says they were relatively certain that nothing was going to happen. Like, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
I mean,
we're pretty sure.
it's
It's
theory.
unlikely. um, and it's kind of the same, sort of the same with this super intelligence or AI. How are we actually going to control it? What are the consequences that we are not aware of? And I've found that to be a really quite an interesting discussion in this context.
Yeah, and so that's really, I mean, it's a really, it's and I think we had the discussion before. I think th the that our moral ability, our ability to reason and think about the implications of what can happen, if not caught up with our ability to create things.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's just my own opinion. And so I wish, honestly, I wish I mean, we being the collective, we spent more time on sort of looking inward about what is actually going to happen and what and very thoughtful and not and that's sort of the beauty of things like, say, a space program or something where there's a collective program to work on a collective problem, is because then you start removing the monetary return and the need to make monetize everything. And most of our best ideas didn't come from a need to a desire to make money from it. Well, a lot of them did, but not all of them.
Hmm. Yeah, there is just this. There is this concept of once artificial intelligence or AI in some form has been released, you can't stop it again. Especially if it's self-learning. So there's a good example here that says, if you want to build a robot that's funny, yeah, you might start out with a joke saying what's grey and can't swim, and it says a castle. It's like 3-year-old funny, right? But then as it recompiles itself and it learns what is funny to humans, it might say, "I told my sister she was drawing her eyebrows too high. She looked surprised." And it gets to a point where it gets, "Oh, that's amusing," and then it gets to a point where it just becomes superhuman and it becomes so funny that we can't see it. If you know what I mean, like it doesn't have to be humor we're talking about, but it becomes so advanced that it's way beyond human comprehension. And this is the fear, is that once we get artificial intelligence that does understand how humans work and how you learn, you can't stop it again, because as fast as the hardware is, that is as fast as it will improve itself over and over and over again. And that, I guess, is where some of these companies that are trying to provide ethics and morals around at artificial intelligence is where they come in. Um, it. You don't want a robot that's too funny, right?
Yeah, and I think there's in this article, we'll link it up there, but one of the arguments, regarding AI, they use these different really cool examples, and one is the argument from Stephen Hawking's cat, which basically says that Stephen Hawking, if he spent his whole life imagining how a cat would think about, or getting a cat into a car carrier, trying to teach himself how to think and behave like a cat, and how to model behavior for a cat and do all these things, that ultimately there's nothing he could do really to make the cat get into the car carrier.
Yeah.
And and the thing is that if Stephen Hawking's is, say, the AI, he not only be able to do that, he wouldn't physically, he would be stuck somewhere on a on a server, if you will, um, with no ability to to work on that problem. And so, I mean, there's so so AI, um, I don't know, there's just so many interesting ways to think about it. I guess maybe I'm just more fearful than, I know that I'm sort of arguing the opposite of what I have in the past, but um, AI to me is um, is kind of scary when you start thinking about what it could do because we don't really know.
No, that's the thing. We just don't understand what could happen, right? There's someone calls it deep stupidity because we get so wound up in things and we just go down the rabbit hole and we can't come back. So yeah, I'm not sure where AI is going. I think it's a topic we're probably going to come back to again and again, especially on this show as things evolve and progress. But I think it's important that we kind of yeah.
My other favorite one here was the argument from my roommate, which was the idea that so if AI is like my a roommate I had in college, the smartest guy I ever know, but all he did was sit around and play World of Warcraft in between taking bong rips. Um, so what's to say that AI, just because it's incredibly brilliant, would do anything of use?
Just be the fat guy in the corner.
Yeah, because if it's modeled after people, and if you look around you, you know that people are unique as a snowflake, but then also we all share very similar traits. So what I love about this article is it goes through and it presupposes all these sorts of different scenarios in a way that is makes sense. It's simple to consume, and it poses all the right questions philosophically for me, anyways. So I guess our show is all about getting people to read stuff today.
Yeah, but that's okay. If we can put a few thoughts in people's heads, that's okay. As long as they're not about your mum again. So,
Yeah, just keep my mom out of this.
oh, sorry.
Mum's the word.
I just slipped in there.
Mum's mum's the word.
Yes. Now, yeah. So that was super intelligence. I found this interesting article. Well, it just kind of spurred a thought in me, and then I think we've talked about 3D printers briefly before. I still have not got a 3D printer. I have not found the right excuse, I guess, to get one. We were going to get one for prototyping car parts, but then we decided not to restore old cars, really, just take them apart. So, that was... What? Why is that so funny?
Oh, I'm just biting my tongue.
No,
I
there's
think
lots of...
Jeep has a really good model out there. You can
Yeah,
pick
that
up.
could certainly use a few parts. Can I print? No, never mind. So, so I found this article, and there's a Russian programmer. Of course, he's a programmer, because he looks like one, and he's 3D printed his own T-800 Terminator robot.
What?
I know.
Why would you do?
Because you can.
Oh,
But he didn't stop there.
people are.
He didn't stop there. So he's 3D printed the whole robot, right? But then he's also given it a brain. So I'm not sure what he's put in it. Probably a Raspberry Pi or something. But he's actually programmed it with artificial intelligence. Speaking of what we were talking about before. And the funny thing is, it's pretty down accurate because he actually got in contact with the original Terminator people and got plans and stuff for it. So he's printed it kind of to spec of how the T-800 would have been. If you don't know what the T-800 was, it's what Arnie was in the original Terminator, right? He was a T-800. Well, I guess he was in the second one as well. He was just a good one. This guy spent...
A good one.
He was. He was a nice, lovely robot. He smiled and everything. And this guy, it took him 4 years to create the parts out of plastic. I'm just astounded by the amount of effort gone into this. I'll put the link on the show notes as well.
That's 4 years.
4 years. He disassembled
So
a
he's
toy
obviously-
helicopter to get the actuators so he could move things. So currently he only moves its head, but apparently he's working on the rest. But it speaks. It answers questions. It looks things up online to answer these questions. It recognizes some commands.
And it voted for Putin.
Well, maybe. It has a name. He's named it John
I
Henry.
just
Don't ask me why.
John Henry.
John Henry.
That's all right.
Um,
It's a strong name.
it is. It is. The dude, the creator of it, his name is Alexander Osipovich. So kudos to you, Alexander. It's pretty darn good effort. But I thought, what is the world coming to? We're now printing our own
Well,
doom.
yeah, well, it's interesting. So he got the idea that at some point that he wanted to do this. You always wonder how these things unfold. If the guy had a master plan, or if he just, got the equipment and thought, oh, I'll try this, and then I'll try this, and I'll try this. Um, my sense is most people like this don't ever go into these things with a grand plan, and that it is usually just a series of unfortunate events that lead them down the path to doing this kind of stuff. Um, but I'm amazed that somebody in Russia. It seems like a lot of interesting things happen there that we don't ever hear about, technology-wise.
Well, yeah. Um, there's a lot of the world
Maybe
that
we
we
should do a
just
show on that.
what Russia?
Yeah,
Yeah, we could.
like
Maybe we get a Russian guest
technology in
on here
Russia.
or something.
Well, I don't want to go that far, but no, no, absolutely, we should do that. I followed Yandex for a long time, and then they just it's there's just not a lot of. Well, I should say there probably is a lot of things coming out of Russia besides spam, but you don't read about it. I mean, I'd be curious if any listeners know of good resources for news and that sort of stuff out of Russia. I'd be very interested in that.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Despite the fact that we can see Russia from my porch,
Well, you
I
could obviously. Oh dear. Um, did you know that someone 3D printed a car?
very small car.
No, two-seater. Someone printed an actual car.
Why would you do that?
I don't
I
know.
that's the part. I don't know why. If you're gonna make something, because I mean, does it? Obviously, you'd have to put an engine in it, and then it would have to not melt the whatever it was made out of. Unless yeah, you just couldn't do that, right? Unless it was electric.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
no,
don't
I
know.
think they just printed
That seems
panels.
kind of
I mean,
silly,
surely the driving train's not
huh?
plastic. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Just in terms of 3D printing, because it's kind of still considered a bit of a hobby thing. Oh, I printed this Lego thing so I can have on Lego blocks on my light socket or whatever it might be. Um, I haven't seen, except for prototyping for vehicles and for that sort of thing, I haven't seen real industry applications of 3D printing.
Well, this is another interesting one where what I have seen. So not obviously 3D printing, but what you're seeing is some of the same things that 3D printing require used in industrial purposes, like injection molding or injection or concrete, pre-formed concrete, sort of structural elements in a building. All these things where you need precision, cut or formed parts and pieces. So and I think those things all kind of came up at the same time as 3D printing. But that's a really good observation, Lars. Oh God,
Hmm.
I didn't say that, did I? But that the fact that 3D printing, was for a long time was sort of rallied out there as this is so cool, this is so cool, and really there's been a dearth of any kind of major announcement about it that I've seen
Hmm.
in a year or so. It seems like.
Yeah, the only thing I've seen is that the prices of 3D printing equipment has gone down, down, down. So it's much more accessible. But I haven't seen good examples of actual use cases other than kind of hobbyist and, as I said, prototyping car parts before manufacturing. Um, so yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bigger issue for me is, whenever you make something out of plastic, and I know not everything is plastic that's 3D printed. But anything that's plastic or made out of poly, it once it's made, it doesn't go away. So for me, the bigger issue is how do you recycle and reuse all that material and get that technology down before you make more of it. But that's just I don't know. That's just the guy that kind of likes clean air and clean water talking.
I like that stuff. I'm a big fan of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, picking plastic off the beach here, it's horrible. It's horrible what we dump in our oceans. But anyway, I digress. It's late, and I'm punchy.
You're punchy. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well,
don't get me punchy.
I think it's that time of the show, Joel.
Is this where I tell a story?
No, not that part.
Oh,
No.
damn it.
No, it's.
I had a good story about getting drunk in a pub in Yorkshire once.
No.
I've already started, so I can't stop now. So I go to Yorkshire. I'm not even sure why I stopped there, but I was wearing shorts when I went to this pub. I was kind of like lost. I was looking for a place to eat meal and have a drink, and I go in this pub, and I sit down, and it's this sort of old dingy place, and there's these old guys with they're kind of toothless and various this, that's, and the other, and the guy sits down next to me and starts talking to me, and he says, what do you do? And I tell him my job, and he says, you're a doctor. And I'm like, no, I'm not a doctor. So the evening goes on, and we're drinking, carrying on. And I'm wearing shorts, and these guys are all loaded. And I'm loaded, meaning they've been drinking a lot, not that they've got money. And so at some point in the evening, they all decide that since I'm wearing shorts, they need to wear shorts. So they all whip down their pants. And so I'm sitting in a pub in Yorkshire at 19 years old with a bunch of drunk, I don't know what they were, they were in their boxers, and I was in my shorts, drunk out of my mind. And you're welcome to cut this out of the show if you want, Lars, but that is my story about going to York.
To York or Yorkshire?
Yeah, well, I was in York, but anyways,
no.
We had a blast. It was probably one of the funnest nights of my life.
Funnest. So what it really is time for is for me to tell an amazing joke.
I know.
It's the joke of the week, so come along with me. I cannot promise it will be funny, but it's the joke of the week.
And do you know what you call a blonde who has dyed his hair brown?
No.
Artificial intelligence.
Oh, God. I like how you used his, though.
Yeah, well, I'm blonde, so there you go.
Yeah.
And another saying I found was artificial intelligence is no match for natural stupidity. I thought that was pretty good.
That's right. That's me. That's all I rely on.
Yes.
So I think we should have a guest on next time, Lars.
Let's do that. Yep, we might find. We kind of have someone in our sight, but we'll see what happens.
Right on.
All right, see you, mate.
Until then, have a good evening.
This has been another episode of The Dane and the Pain with Joel and Lars. We look forward to having you back next time. Until then, toodaloo.